Hey Internet, this is a comparison of the Nokia Lumia 920, the Nokia Lumia 925, and the Nokia Lumia 830. I wanted to make this video because I feel like there are a lot of Windows Phone users out there like me who got a 920 early on in its life cycle. I bought mine in November of 2012, and now that it's about 2 years later, they're thinking of upgrading and they're looking at the options that are out there. The 830 is just coming out in other countries, and rumor has it that it's about to be released next month in the US by AT&T. So I wanted to give you all a look because I went a little crazy and bought an 830 for full price from Expansys. I also have a 925 here because I bought it this summer because my 920's microphone was starting to act up when I was on calls. And I thought it would be good to include in this video because it's been said out there that the 830 is almost like a successor to the 925 because it's thin and light and it's got the metal frame like the 925 has and like other recent Nokia phones like the 930 have. The first thing I noticed when I took the 830 out of the box is that it's pretty thin and light. In comparison to the 925, it's just a little bit heavier. The 925 is 139 grams, and the 830 is 150 grams. In comparison, the good old 920 was 185 grams, which is why it feels like such a big brick or a tank, which was kind of nice in its own way, but I personally always felt like it was too heavy and just pretty bulky. The 830 is also exactly the same thickness as the 925. They're both 8.5 millimeters thin, whereas the 920 is 10.7 millimeters thick, at least at its thickest point. So I'll just hold these up now to compare them. Here you go. So you can see how the 925 and the 830 are really similar. Meanwhile, there's a pretty big difference between the 920 and the 830 there. Other things I noticed about the 830 right out of the box. For one, it's a big phone. It's bigger than these other two phones. It's really quite tall. Here, I'll show you. It's got a 5-inch screen compared to the 4.5-inch screens on the 920 and the 925. So that's one thing to consider, is that it's kind of nice to have that slightly bigger screen. But the body itself is really tall, which I have kind of mixed feelings about it. The other thing that's nice about the 830 is that it has a very premium feel to it. It's got that nice metal frame. I also just love the way that this phone looks from the back. I think this is the coolest looking back of a Nokia phone since the 920. I'm a little bit biased there, but you know. Like these other two phones, the 830 also has a camera button on the side, which only the premium Nokia phones have these days. You can see these buttons are also the same color as the metal frame, which is nice. They almost sit flush with the frame too, which is a little bit different from the other two phones. In comparing the user experience on these different phones, the screen on the 830 is pretty nice, but I have to admit, I don't think it's as nice as the other two screens. There we go. I don't think you can tell in this video, but for one thing, you can probably see that the 925 screen looks nice and bright. I have the brightness cranked up on all of these screens. The specs also bear out my little observation about the screens. So the 830 actually has lower pixel density and slightly lower resolution than the other two phone screens. So you're going to get a pixel density of 296 ppi on the 830 compared to 332 on the 920 and 334 on the 925. The 830 also has an IPS LCD display, which is the same kind of display that the 920 had, whereas the 925 has an OLED display, so it only lights up the pixels that it needs. I actually find so far in the 830 that I kind of missed that OLED display, which I was a little bit surprised by because I wasn't really sure how I would feel about OLED displays when I first got the 925. But I have to say that the bright, vivid colors and the deep blacks of an OLED display go really well with Microsoft's Metro/modern design that's throughout the Windows Phone experience. So another thing about the 830 screen, like I mentioned before, is that it's bigger than the other two. So it's 5 inches compared to 4.5 inches on the others. That's kind of nice when you're reading things, but I have to admit that I have kind of short thumbs, and it's hard for me to actually reach this notification shade compared to the other two phones. I was really used to this the 4.5-inch screen, and I feel like that's a really good size for my thumbs. So your mileage will vary, but I just wanted to point that out, that that's been an adjustment so far. The 830 has a quad-core Snapdragon 400 processor, which is supposed to be faster than the processors in the other two phones. So far, I have to say the experience on the 830 is really snappy. There is this odd thing that happens, though, where there's a stutter when I'm scrolling up on my home screen. So let's see, I'll try to show you here. Boom, you see that there? I don't really know what that's all about, but it's persistent, and maybe it's just a weird flaw in this particular phone that I got, or something that's going to go on with a lot more of these. I don't know. Suffice it to say that that doesn't happen on either the 920 or the 925 that I've got. A couple other features about the 830 that are different from these other two phones. So you can actually pop this back off, like so. So you can change them out and swap colors. I've got the white one here, obviously, but it also comes in green and orange. So it's very easy to just buy a new back and plug it right in there. And you can also see here, this is kind of exciting, there's built-in Qi wireless charging, just like the 920. The 925 didn't have that, it just had these contacts on the back, and you had to buy a separate case so that you could enable the wireless charging. I'm really hoping that AT&T is not going to disable the Qi wireless charging when it comes out. A couple other things about this 830 here. So it has a removable battery. The battery is 2200 milliamp hours, which is just a little bit bigger than the 920 and 925's batteries. I've only had this phone for a day, so I haven't really been able to test out the battery life just yet, but we'll see. It should be a little bit better. There's also this micro SD expansion slot here, and Nokia says that it's good for up to 128 gigabytes. You get 16 gigs of storage on board with the 830, which is just like the 925. I have a 32 gig 920, which I really enjoyed, but having that expansion there is really nice because you don't get that with either of these other two phones. It also has a 10 megapixel camera on the back with Zeiss optics and PureView. Same kind of camera that's on these other two phones. Both of those were 8.7 megapixels. I don't think I need to sell you on the quality of Nokia's cameras. If you've ever used a Nokia phone before, they're awesome. I absolutely love the cameras, and I'm expecting, although I haven't really tested it out yet, that the camera on the 830 is going to be great too, and maybe just a little bit better with those extra megapixels, even though that's not the be-all and end-all. The 830 also ships with the Lumia Denim firmware, which is the next update after Cyan. I think most of the features of Denim are supposed to go along with the new Lumia camera app that's coming out soon. It's not out yet, so I can't really show it to you. The one aspect of Denim that I can show you is this slightly enhanced glance screen. You see that now you have the option of adding the date, and that is a choice. You don't have to have it there. You can also now set the glance screen so that an app uses it, much like you can set a lock screen for a different app. So the only app that it seems to work with out of the box is Microsoft Weather or MSN Weather. It shows a little weather forecast right on your glance screen. I think it looks pretty cool, but the one thing about it is that it also changes your lock screen. You don't have the option, at least not yet, of setting a different glance screen versus your lock screen. You kind of have to use the same app for both. So we'll see. Maybe that'll change in future updates. I'm also looking forward to seeing what other app developers do with the glance screen. To wrap up, should you upgrade? If you got a 920 2 years ago and you're looking to upgrade and you're thinking, oh, maybe not the HTC one I made for Windows, maybe I want an 830, I think you should upgrade to the 830 if you've got a 920. I think it's a really solid upgrade. It's significantly lighter and thinner, like I mentioned before. It should have a slightly better camera, slightly better battery life, slightly better processor. There are all these little incremental upgrades, and I think it just makes sense. With the Lumia 830, you also don't lose your built-in wireless charging, and you have that micro SD expansion. Another thing I didn't mention is there's also no camera hump like there was with the 925. There's only a slightly raised area around the camera just to keep it from scratching on a flat surface. On the other hand, if you've got a 925 right now, I feel like the path to upgrade from the 925 to the 830 is a little less clear, although granted the 925 did come out in the summer of 2013, so it's less than a year and a half old, so those of you who have that phone may not really be looking to upgrade just yet, and in fact, you might be really lucky because next summer there could be some great new flagship phones coming out from Microsoft that take advantage of Windows 10, so who knows. I would basically recommend holding on to your 925 for now. That's about all I want to say about these phones for now. I hope this was useful to you guys. Thanks so much for watching.